أملاك الهيئة وتدير انتفاعها وتدير التراخيص، إلى جانب شكل البرج وإدارة هذا الاستثمار كبيئة جاذبة. شكرا جزيلا.
نفس ما تفضلت أخوي، بالفعل يعني الآن الأراضي اللي يتم بناء فيها أبراج الاتصالات هي أبراج أراضي مسجلة باسم الهيئة بالتنسيق مع وزارة الإسكان. وإحنا في الهيئة نحاول قدر الإمكان حقيقة أنه نوعا ما ننظم مواقع هذه الأراضي بحيث أنه تتناسب مع الأطر التنظيمية اللي تحكم هذه الأراضي أو هذه الأصول. فيما يخص جمالية الأبراج وهيئات الهيئة لهذه الأبراج، احنا نعتقد أنه في المستقبل هذه المحطات أو هذه المحطات اللي تعتبر أساسا ممكن وركيزة رئيسية للمخططات الحضرية والمدن الذكية، لابد أنه يتم احتوائها ضمن هذه المخططات. فمستقبلا نعتقد أنه هذه المحطات ربما لن يتم يعني ملاحظتها من قبل القاطنين في هذه المخططات. وهذا اللي نعمل عليه حقيقة في المدن الذكية الجديدة، إنه هذه الأبراج قد تكون هي عمود الإنارة اللي موجود في الحي السكني، أو ربما تكون هي أحد الأشجار في حديقة الحي السكني، أو ربما أحد الكراسي اللي موجودة على ممر الشاطئ. فهذا المستقبل اللي نشوفه لأبراج الاتصالات، أنها تكون مندمجة ومتكاملة مع العناصر اللي موجودة داخل هذه المخططات، بحيث أنه تكون غير مرئية للقاطنين والساكنين في هذه المناطق. ما أعرف إذا الجواب كان كافي.
نعم، شكرا مهندس عبد
إذا في
الرحمن.
ملاحظة ممكن إحنا نوصلها للمختصين في القضاء نفس الشيء. يعني أعتقد أنه من الجيد أنه الهيئة قدر الإمكان تحاول أنه تعتمد المواقع اللي هي بالفعل تكون مناسبة. يعني نحب نأكد أنه في حال تم تصديق أرض لبناء برج اتصالات، أو أنه في حال أنه تم استثناء بعض المواقع، وعلى فكرة موضوع الاستثناء هذا موجود في القرار البيئي وموجود في لائحة الأبراج. أحيانا يتم منح استثناء بحيث أنه المسافة من موقع البرج إلى أقرب منشأة ربما لا تكون في هي المسافة اللي هي متوائمة مع أطوال الأبراج. لكن نضطر أحيانا أنه يتم تصديق هذا النوع من المحطات، خاصة في الأحياء السكنية القديمة اللي ما في يعني بأي حال من الأحوال أنك تحصل الأرض بهذه المواصفات. فمؤخرا حقيقة تجينا كثير من الشكاوي ويتم رفع قضايا لهذا النوع من هذه الطلبات. فالهيئة قدر الإمكان يعني عندها المخططات السكنية المحدثة من قبل وزارة الإسكان، وفي حال وجود بديل يعني متوائم مع اللائحة، فتأكدوا كل تأكيد أنه المختصين في الهيئة راح يعملوا على هذا الشيء. وإذا تم منح الاستثناء فربما أنه البدائل غير موجودة داخل المخطط السكني. وهذا اللي نشوفه في معظم القضايا اللي نتعامل معها، أنه البدائل غير متاحة لتطبيق الأطر التنظيمية أو المواد اللي موجودة على حسب اللي متفق عليه فيما يخص مواقع هذه الأبراج.
شكرا مهندس عبد الرحمن. وفي نهاية هذه الجلسة أود أن أتقدم بالشكر إلى ضيوف الكرام: مهندس خالد الرمحي من شركة أريد عمان، مهندس عبد الرحمن المعمري من هيئة تنظيم الاتصالات، والمهندسة أفراح الزكيالي من وزارة الإسكان والتخطيط العمراني. شكرا لكم وشكرا لأسئلتكم ولاستماعكم. والآن أعتقد بتكون فترة الغداء، ننتظر مريم تخبرنا بالقادم إن شاء الله. أحسنتم، شكرا.
شكرا للأفاضل المختصين على ما قدموه من معلومات مثرية في الجلسة. الآن ندعوكم لتناول وجبة الغداء في مطعم الفندق، على أن نستكمل الجلسة الأخيرة في الساعة 3. وشكرا لكم. الجلسة الأخيرة راح تكون عن نظرة عامة عن أنشطة الاتحاد بشأن التعرض البشري للمجالات الكهرومغناطيسية، وأيضا نرجو منكم العودة مجددا هنا في الساعة 3. So please for the translation we should come back here at 3 after lunch. Thank you.
Hi, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi Raina, I can hear you well, and I think I can see myself on the big screen.
Good. Well, right now we are going for people is going for lunch. So
Sure.
if you can pull out your slides.
I'll try and share my presentation, and I'll go share screen and desktop. Let's see if this works. Can you see my presentation, Raina?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, that's I think that was the start of it. But if you can see that, that's brilliant. And I
Okay,
can just
perfect. Just
I'll
for
stay
you
on
to
the
know,
panel.
maybe you
Sorry. Yep.
maybe
You
you
go.
know as well. There is. Sorry,
Sorry.
I was talking over you. I didn't.
No, you go. You go.
There is interpretation in Arabic and English. So for the question and answer, if you are not able to stay, please switch to the Arabic channel in the Zoom, to the English channel, sorry, in the Zoom.
Yes, I was listening to the last part on the English channel in the Zoom. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Okay, good, because most of the questions are done in Arabic, so that's why.
Ah, okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, no. So I can see you're on the stage at the lectern, are you?
Sorry, yes, I am in the lectern.
Oh, okay. Now I can. I wasn't sure where you were. So yeah, perfect. So long as you can hear me okay and you can see my screen, that's perfect.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. And we are going to reconvene. We ask people to be here in 1 hour, but to start 1/4 past. So we hope that people are in the room in 1 hour after lunch.
No, that's fine. Yeah, you can do that. Maybe while you've got this minute, just use your phone and snap that pic. But save having to worry about it later. But it looks like it's up on the big screen.
It's hard to hear you from here.
Ah.
Do you mind repeating?
No, I was just going to say, if you wanted to take that photo now that I asked for, you could do it on the, but it's fine. We can do it after.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike, for your understanding. And sorry
Yep.
for the delay. I know it's very late. Thank you.
It's
See you
late.
later.
Okay, bye-bye. See you. Bye-bye.
بقول لك كيف.
Hello, Mike's joined.
حضورنا الكريم، نستكمل جلستنا الختامية لهذا اليوم، والتي ستتحدث عن أنشطة الاتحاد بشأن التعرض البشري للمجالات الكهرومغناطيسية والجهود الجارية لتقييس المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. تدير الجلسة المهندسة إيمان فاروق، رئيسة الفريق الإقليمي لمنطقة الدول العربية التابع للجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع تقييس الاتصالات بالاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات، ويشاركها فريدريك ليوكي رئيس فرقة العمل في الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات، وكذلك إرنست سيد المدير التنفيذي لشركة ويب كنترول، عضو في لجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع تقييس الاتصالات. ويشاركهم عن بعد مايك وود، مهني متميز وأيضا مقرر مساعد تابع للجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع تقييس الاتصالات. فليتفضلوا مشكورين. كما ننوه برجاء الحديث ببطء ليتسنى للمترجمين ترجمة الأسئلة والحديث. شاكرين لكم تعاونكم.
Good afternoon. It's Mike here. I didn't actually have any interpretation running for the introduction. Raina, did you want me to present now?
Sorry, Mike. We are going to start in a second. It was that there was no interpretation at that moment, but they just introduced the session. So we are asking for the moderator to come to the room, okay?
Oh, okay. I'll wait. Sorry.
Okay, we are going, just give us 1 minute and we are going to start. Less than a minute.
بسم الله. مساء الخير عليكم. الجلسة الثالثة أو الثالثة لهذا اليوم هي نظرة عامة على أنشطة الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات بشأن التعرض البشري للمجالات الكهرومغناطيسية ITU activities of EMF. المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية وما أدراك من المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. دعونا نبحر مع الخبراء في هذا المجال لننهل من علمهم وخبرتهم الطويلة في مجال اللي هو في مجال الطيف الكهرومغناطيسي. نبدأ مع الخبير المحترف مايك وود. هو أحد المحترفين المتميزين من شركة تيلسترا، وهو مبدأ برنامج للطاقة الكهرومغناطيسية والحوكمة وإدارة المخاطر. تخرج من RMIT ويتمتع بخبرة تزيد عن 30 عاماً في نشر شبكات الهاتف السيار والاستشارات المجتمعية، ويقود برنامج EMF للمجموعة الدراسية الخامسة. مايك هو المقرر المساعد للجنة الدراسات الخامسة الكويشن 3 لقطاع تقييس الاتصالات، وهو حالياً رئيس اللجنة الكهروتقنية الدولية التي تتولى المسؤولية العالمية عن معايير اختيار EMF للهواتف المحمولة والأجهزة والشبكات اللاسلكية وأنظمة الاتصالات الراديوية، بما في ذلك شبكات الجيل الخامس. فلتتفضل مايك.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. It's a pleasure. I'm presenting from Australia in Melbourne, so we're in the middle of we're coming into our winter. and I realise that you've been running a little bit behind in the schedule. So thank you for accommodating me in the late time zone, and I'll get on with the presentation. Today I'm going to, joined with my other colleagues from Study Group 5, I will show you one of the key developments that the ITU has done with the ITU's EMF guide and the mobile application. So I will share my screen, and I'll make sure that we're done within 12 minutes so that we can then move on to the other presentations and answer some questions or have Q&A. I'll just check that you can see my screen. Just making sure you can see it before. Okay, thank you very much for confirming that. So my presentation today is really going to look at what we've developed as a group within the ITU to provide information on electromagnetic fields. This has been around for a while. We have an ITU document that a recommendation that also includes this material, but it was thought to be a great way to develop a mobile app. So I'm going to show you live on the screen shortly what the app delivers. I'll just move to the next slide. So and I've heard some of the discussion earlier today, and many of the topics and many of the subjects that you've been talking about, the ITU also receives those questions, and they form the basis for the information guide and the menu that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, and the topics that we're going to be, that we thought it was important that we had some standard information. Now, I'm looking at the very top screen here, and the fundamentals of electromagnetic fields really resolve in the spectrum. So we've put a lot of work into the mobile app and into the EMF guide to make sure there are illustrations and pictures, like you can see on the right-hand side, that are part of the guide and part of the mobile application. And we encourage people, and you can see it's the supplement 120, but you can see the pictures there, and we encourage people to use these pictures and use these explanations when communicating about EMF. When we move down to the overview of EMF, one of the key aspects is with our United Nations partner, the WHO, and you will have had a presentation on that from Dr. Van der Venter earlier today. But the key topics when we look at EMF and health tend to be what are the updates from the WHO, mobile phones and health, information on base stations and health. 5G is a very common topic in many countries. And also, what are the human exposure guidelines? What is the current status of research? And what are the effects? So these are some of the key topics that we cover in the first part of the EMF guide. In the second part, or in another part of the EMF guide, we also have a mobile phones frequently asked questions. Now you can see a number of questions here in the guide, and I'm going to show you those live on the app very shortly. But I'm just trying to give you a flavor of the sort of information that we have sought to make sure is fully available through the ITU. One of my favorite areas of the EMF guide is being able to have a look at the resources from the ITU, and in fact, the recommendations and standards that have been produced by Study Group 5, and we list them, and we have all of the links to them directly out of the guide or the mobile application to make it easier for you to find them. We've also had a lot of questions on 5G. So our update most recently in the last few years was around addressing the questions on 5G. How does it work? What are the benefits? What frequencies does 5G use? And how do the various aspects of the 5G network work? Because like many stakeholders, you may be asked those questions. So being able to share information in a useful way, we thought was a very useful application for the guide. Now, I want to take you to the EMF guide and show you some of the key features. So you can actually do this on your screen or on your device if you go to EMF guide. I think it's emfguide.int. Sorry, I'll have to check the actual link. I'm just having a brain fade here, but I'm on the actual guide at the moment. If you search for the EMF guide on the ITU or just Google it, it will come up with a link for you. I think it's emfguide.itu.int is the link. The first thing I should say is that this is a live version of what you would see on a mobile device, and it's currently available in a number of languages. So we have it available in 6 languages, and at the moment I'm in the English language, but we have got it available in French, in Spanish, in Russian, and I think that's Chinese, and we also have it available in Malay, but I'll stick with English for the moment for this presentation. Whenever you open one of these boxes, it brings up the topic that I was showing you on the screen before. So if I wanted information on the WHO program, we provide information and a link to what I think Dr. van der Venter would have shown you earlier. If you wanted information on 5G and health, then we also provide what the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection advises on 5G and health. But we have a dedicated section on 5G and RF EMF. Now, this was, what are the benefits of 5G? This was one of the sections where we have some of these graphics available that show you what the International Mobile Telecommunications, or from the radio communications sector of the ITU, what they have developed in terms of their applications for 5G. We also provide a diagram of how the 5G networks are set up and how they work. And if I go back to the main screen, one of the areas before that I really liked was the relevant standards and guidelines, because you may get asked questions about what are the standards that are relevant for EMF. Now, if I have a look at the ITU standards and guidelines, these are the recommendations with direct links to the various standards and recommendations that Frederick will talk about shortly, but we have it available in the EMF guide. And finally, I wanted to show you some of the additional resources that the EMF guide offers you. And we have various resources from the World Health Organization, the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, governments and non-government organizations, and general resources. Because there have been a lot of questions asked about 5G and the EMF levels in local communities, there's a number of links here, but I wanted to show you one of them, which was from the GSM Association. And because I've just clicked on the direct link, they have an EMF, they have a map that shows you all of the surveys that have been done globally and includes many of the ones we use in the ITU. Now, by clicking on this, I can actually zoom in to different countries. And if I looked at, for example, the UK, what this shows me at the moment is that there have been a number of surveys in the high band, in the mid band, and this is done by the regulators. And so they've got high band and mid band surveys. And again, this is what the 5G levels were as a percentage of the regulated standard, and you can go to the source. I'll show you one more country closer to where I am. And yes, are we over time, are we?
Sorry, we can't see the presentation.
Oh, you can't see it. I'll stop sharing. I don't know why that didn't share. Oh, I'm probably sharing the wrong. My apologies. I was sharing the wrong screen. Sorry about that. I will go back to the main screen. Can you see my screen now? Raina?
Yes, okay.
Okay. Sorry, my apologies, and thank you for thank you for the interruption to let me know. What I did do was I clicked on a link that took me to the GSMA from the EMF guide, and what I'm doing now is I'm just showing you an interactive map of the world. And for example, in Australia, if I click on Australia, it will provide you with a list of the surveys, of EMF surveys done in Australia, and the results. These are the surveys in the high band, up at 26 gigahertz. These are in the mid band, and these are in the low band. And there's some other surveys that have also been done. I clicked on the UK before, and it came up with the same thing. Now, the GSMA is regularly updating the surveys in this global map, and the website is active and it's live. So whenever you are in the EMF guide and you wanted to see what additional surveys there were, excuse me, you could go to this resource. What I'll do now is I'll just stop sharing because I wanted to make sure that we were concise. But I'd highly recommend that you try the EMF guide on your mobile device or on your computer, and it's just called emfguide.itu.int. And we could post the link in the chat or make it available with the presentation, Raina. So I will pause there. I don't know if there's questions at the end of my talk or at the end of the session, but I'm happy to take any questions, and it's been a pleasure to show you one of the developments from the ITU that we hope is beneficial for you.
Okay. اوكي، شكرا على التقديم الضافي لهذه أو لهذا البرزنتيشن الخاص بال EMF guideline. حنضع الأسئلة كلها مع بعض على نهاية الجلسة. دعونا نستمع إلى أيقونة المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. الخبير فريدريك هو رئيس فرقة العمل الأولى للجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع تقييس الاتصالات، أيضا حاصل على درجتي الماجستير والدكتوراه من جامعة فرانسوا ببولندا. هو أيضا خريج العديد من برامج الاتصالات التي يقدمها معهد التدريب على الاتصالات بالولايات المتحدة في واشنطن. انضم منذ عام 1985 إلى قسم البحث والتطوير بشركة أورنج ببولندا، حيث شغل منصب مدير الهوائيات والانتشار ونائب رئيس لجنة الدراسات الخامسة. أيضا هو في لجنة الدراسات الثالثة لقطاع الاتصالات الراديوية. هو المقرر لسؤال التعرض البشري للمجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. أيضا هو الرئيس السابق للفرع البولندي لجمعية IEEE، أيضا جمعية EMC. المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية لمجاله هي أنظمة الهوائيات، الحماية من الإشعاع الكهرومغناطيسي، إدارة الطيف، وانتشار الموجات الراديوية. فلتتفضل الخبير فريدريك إلى المنصة.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me for this very, very interesting and important event. I will have pleasure to present you ITU deliverables concerning human exposure to electromagnetic fields. How it is working, how to change the slides. Oh yes, now it is working.
It is
Ah,
this one.
okay.
You see?
Yes. Thank you very much. No, I will use this one. So as you could see, the human exposure to electromagnetic fields is in ITUT study group 5 under responsibility of question 3. And we have obligation from many resolutions from plenipotentiary conference, which is the highest body of ITU, also from WTSA, which is World Conference of Standardization, and also WTDC, which is World Conference for Developing Countries. So we have to work on that, and we are doing this with pleasure. Up to now, we have in force 12 recommendations. We have 10 informative documents, which are called as supplements, including also one technical report. We have 2 mobile applications. One of them was presented just before by Mike, and 5 software packages. All these documents are available free of charge under the link of Working Party 5, Study Group 5, Working Party 1. You have see this link on the bottom of the screen. In the annex of my presentation, I will include titles of all these recommendations for your convenience. And the most important recommendation is K91. Why? It is we so-called mother recommendation. This recommendation is covering the whole spectrum of information concerning human exposure to electromagnetic fields with references to all other recommendations, supplements, also not only ITU, but also IEC, and different documents. So it is good starting point if you are looking for our documents. In the right side, you can see some pictures taken from this recommendation and informative documents. As you could see, it is also concerning active antennas, beamforming, and so on, because as you know, 5G is now very hot topic. As I said, recommendation K91 is mother recommendation because we have many documents, many standards, and if you are starting to work on this subject, you could be lost. So this document is something like a guide concerning all other documents. And in the right, you could see that many birds are sitting on the base station, and they are not, thinking that it is not dangerous. We have no any problems with this situation, and they have no any fear that it is not healthy. Now I will show you some information concerning ongoing work. So we are working on this, new recommendations, new documents. Some of them will be normative, some of them will be informative. And I encourage all of you to participate in ITUT Study Group 5 work, to contribute, because all documents are based on contribution that we are receiving from entities. Of course, this contribution could be also even questions, even some problems that could be solved. They should be solved. But of course, it depends on the received contribution. If we will have many contributions, this problem may be solved rather fast. If we have no response, it will be much more difficult and more time consuming. Here is one of recommendation is K devices. K devices is dealing with equipment used close to the human body. Consideration of such equipment, assessment of their compliance may be done by measurements, like in left figure, or by calculations, as it is visible on the right figure. Both approaches are good, give comparable results. It depends on the availability for each entity. The second possible recommendation is dealing with artificial intelligence. As you know, now it is very, very hot topic, and we are thinking how to use it also in assessment of human exposure. Of course, it is initial stage of this work, and the initial stage is mainly to collect data, measurement data. We are thinking how to collect them, how to standardize this measurement data, to give a sample to learn by artificial intelligence, and maybe then it will be much more exact or easy to assess human exposure to electromagnetic fields. The next recommendation is K-peak. It is concerning time averaging and space averaging. As you know, electromagnetic fields, especially from mobile systems, are highly depends on the traffic, also in 5G, depend on the location of the user because of beamforming. These beams are following the user, and it depends how many users is in the coverage area. Therefore, it required some guide how to make averaging in order to really assess human exposure. The next recommendation is K-reflections. As you know, metallic objects, but not only metallic, also dielectric objects make some reflections, some attenuation, and how to assess it is the value of this attenuation or reflections, how they influence for exposure assessment, and how to compare them with exposure limits. The next one is supplement concerning metadata EMF. It should be something like a short guide, especially it was invited by African countries, how to deal with problem step by step, how to cover it with correct way. Because as I said, we have many standards. Some of them are very big, very detailed. So it is sometimes not so easy to follow them. Very important supplement, informative document is supplement K32. Why? Because it's collect from different entities, from different countries, examples, especially now concerning measurements of 5G systems. So, for example, in the right side, you could see one example of possible measurement setup for 5G beamforming antennas. But we have collected many results from different countries, and this supplement is living document with update almost every meeting. Also very important document is recommendation KHT3. It is concerning monitoring systems. It collects data from many different countries, from different entities. Monitoring systems are very important because they give us possibility to spread information among general public as concerning exposure levels that they could expect in the area they are living or they are working, because these monitoring systems are connected to internet websites with access Okay, we have to wait 1 minute because there is some problem with connection. I think now it is working. So in right side, you could see example of such monitoring system with connection to internet website in which people could see the expected exposure level around, for example, their homes or their other interesting places. It is not working. Why I couldn't change the slide? Oh, yes. Now there are some examples concerning other ITU recommendation. You could see some examples in the right left corner from EMF. In the bottom of the left side, one example of monitoring system website. In the right side, for example, exposure level that may be expected inside the antenna tower, for example, which may be important for maintenance teams. Of some informative documents, here you could see in the left side exposure levels around electrical bus. In the right bottom, underground base station. There are also such possibility to have underground base station and exposure level around that. Or in the tunnel, especially for metro systems and something like that. So we have many different documents that may be useful for you. Here is a little bit more information as concerning EMF guide, because it is also mobile application, but of course it is also supplement, so it may be loaded to the PC and you look using PC. We have also software tools attached to this some recommendation. For example, in left side you could see software that allow to assess electric and magnetic field strength around power supply lines. In the right side, you could see the software that allow to assess exposure levels around base station, not only mobile base station, but also broadcasting and other radiating systems. So it concludes my presentation, but I would like to show you that in the annex to this presentation, you have the full list of our recommendation in force. You have also full list of our supplements, informative documents, and in the last, there are subject new work items that are ongoing. So it is work in we are now contributing, and I encourage all of you to contribute. Of course, we are also revising existing documents. So if you would like to add something or correct something or update something, it will be also encouraged. Thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا فريدريك على هذا العرض الضافي لتوصيات ودراسات المجموعة الدراسية الخامسة لقطاع التقييس للاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات. أيضا من الخبراء في المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية أرنت سيد هو الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة ويف كنترول. شركة ويف كنترول هي شركة متخصصة في تطوير أدوات القياس ورصد وتقييم التعرض البشري للمجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. لها أنشطتها في أكثر من 80 دولة وأكثر من 25 عاماً من الخبرة. وقد شارك أيضا في لجان التقييس على المستوى الوطني والدولي، وهو أيضا حاليا عضو في لجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع التقييس واللجنة الدراسية الأولى لقطاع الاتصالات الراديوية. فلتتفضل.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the TRA of Oman and the ITU for this opportunity to be presenting here one of the recommendations we have developed at the study group 5 of the ITU. This recommendation is, in fact, is a little bit different from the other recommendations, in the sense that all the other recommendations are focused on everyone, general public, everyone. And this one recommendation is more focused on the workers, especially the RF workers, who are probably the people who can be in a situation with a higher exposure. So let's see if I know how to do that. Yeah, okay. So this is the recommendation. As you can see here, the title is the Assessment and Management of Compliance with Radio Frequency Electromagnetic Field Exposure Limits for Workers at Radio Communication Sites and Facilities. So you can see it's very specific. So as an introduction, well, I will go fast with this because you already know. Standards or guidelines have been developed by the IGNIRP. We have seen a presentation before from the IGNIRP, the IEEE, or in national regulations. You also know that limits are different for the general public and for workers or in occupational environments. You need to know that workers are allowed, according to these legislations and guidelines, workers are allowed with some conditions in areas where the exposure levels are higher than the public limits. And ITU K145 provides guidance on the compliance with those limits for workers at telecommunications facilities. So what's the workers classification according to K145? We have classified the workers according to the situation they may face concerning exposure. So non-RF workers would be workers that do not find themselves near RF emitters because of their normal work. Let's say someone who's working in an office, or you know, any place that is not specific for RF. Then we have the RF workers. RF workers are all those workers that may face situations where they are close to an RF source as part of their job. Examples can be test lab engineers, telecom infrastructure maintenance personnel, like tower climbers, installation engineers. All these kind of people can be classified as RF workers. Then we have a special category for workers that they are not exactly RF workers, but they may face situations where they are working near RF facilities. For instance, if someone is servicing the air conditioning in a rooftop near a base station, that's not an RF worker, but he's near an RF source. So we classify those workers as RF informed workers. I mean, they should be informed that they can face those situations. Then we have a last classification for workers at particular risk. This is also specified like that in different publications around the world. And basically, it's two different type of workers: pregnant women and workers wearing personal medical devices. They can be influenced by electromagnetic fields. So how we classify workers according to the limit levels. We know that we have a general public limit level, and we have an occupational limit level. So non-RF workers and workers at particular risk. So it was in my previous slide, it was like group 1 and group 4. Those workers need to be below general public limit levels. While RF workers and RF informed workers can be over general public limit levels with conditions, as I said, and below, of course, the occupational limit level. So how are the protective measures that K145 specify for those workers? K145 advises to produce an RF safety program. And an RF safety program should contain the following steps. Step one should be performing a risk and exposure assessment. Second step would be training RF workers. Third step would be providing information to RF informed workers. You know, the third category of workers I was explaining before. Fourth step would be providing RF workers with the right tools. And the fifth step would be applying preventive measures. So the action plan. So we need an RF safety program with first steps, which is analyzing and giving information. And then the last step would be to generate an action plan to put all the things on work. So first step, performing risk and exposure assessments. So it's like two steps. Risk assessment. For the risk assessment, we should identify the RF sources and identify what are the appropriate exposure limits. The determination of the need for an RF exposure assessment, of course, if we reach the point that we only have offices, like people working in offices, we don't need any kind of program, safety program or action plan. But if we have situations with other kind of workers, we should do it. Then we should determine the best method to assess the risk, and then the actions taken to mitigate or avoid overexposure. So that would be the risk assessment. Then the second step would be the exposure assessment. And the exposure assessment should be made or can be made with calculations or measurements or both. There's also monitoring tools we can use. There are different things we can use. Then concerning the second step, which is training RF workers, this is very important, in fact, because people believe that as long as you are a worker, you can be over the general public limit and I mean, between the general public and the occupational limit, just because you're a worker. And that's not true. I mean, you need to be trained and you need to be informed that you are in that situation and what you should do if you are in that situation. So we need to train the RF workers on the values and concepts of the basic restrictions and reference levels to understand what does it mean. the results of the levels of exposure and the preventive measures they should take. We have to train them on safe working practices to minimize risks. They should know about the associated potential risks, the direct and indirect effects of electromagnetic fields. I don't want to go into a lot of detail now because we don't have a lot of time, but we need to know, they need to know how to detect adverse health effects. They need to be aware about the possibility of transient symptoms and sensations they may have, if they are, if they could be a problem or not. Most of the cases, it will not be a problem. And they need to know the circumstances in which workers are entitled to health surveillance if there is something that needs to be done in that sense. So the third step, if we have workers in that situation, to provide information on safety practices, also to RF informed workers. So those workers that they do not work in the RF business, but they could be near RF facilities or installations or antennas. So they need to know safe working practices to minimize risks, information on the signs they need to follow, contact information in case they need help or they need to switch off something. We know that this is very difficult, but they need to have contact information and safe working practices in general. Then the fourth step, which is providing RF workers with the right tools. Well, there are different right tools in the market that could help to protect workers. There is personal protective equipment, like, for instance, in extreme cases, there are like suits. They can protect themselves completely, the workers, but we need to be aware that the suits cannot be worked together with the personal RF monitors, which is the second tool that they can use. The personal RF monitors or exposimeters are devices that they warn the worker when the level is exceeding a limit we have set in the device. And we have, and the ITU K145 specifies the minimum specs these instruments should have to be reliable enough to be professional. And the last step is applying preventive measures, the action plan. And the action plan could be, we could have an action plan from different points of views. From the worker perspective, we could show the workers other working methods or positions that they can do regarding to the antenna in order to reduce the RF exposure. They need to know if they need to limit the time they can stay in a specific position, and they have to know how to use the protective suits or the warning instruments they use, of course. From the equipment perspective, of course, we should switch off or reduce the RF power when necessary. We should choose the equipment emitting less EMF if possible, when possible. And we should optimize the position and orientation of the antennas, which is the main elements that radiate power, of course. And of course, from the site perspective, we can use area monitoring in places likely to experience high exposures. We should use fences or interlocks or whatever, or this kind of mechanisms to avoid people to enter areas with high exposures. And Yeah, and use the signs, floor markings, markings or whatever is needed, barriers, whatever, to control the access to these areas. So those are preventive measures that we could include in our action plan. Of course, every action plan will be different, and you will not need all these measures probably in your action plan, only a few of them. And that's all. Thank you for your attention.
شكرا أرنست على التقديم الواضح جدا للمحاذير الخاصة بقياس المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. شكرا لكل الخبراء الذين قدموا في هذه الجلسة. كل المعلومات والشرح واضح وكافي جدا للتوصيات والدراسات الخاصة بلجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع التقييس للاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات. الآن نفتح مجال الأسئلة، وفي رجاء يعني خاص إنه الناس تتكلم بالراحة، يعني اللغة العربية شوية عشان الترجمة يعني يساعد في الترجمة. بالراحة. أيوة تفضل.
For the experts, thank you so much. Thank you for the experts up here, and thanks for the experts from the place where I used to live and I love most. And actually, I do have several things to be discussed, but actually, I'm afraid that we don't have enough time up here to discuss everything. But my note here is just to tell the experts that it was quite informative, very much valuable. So I would like to thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you.
تفضل. مايك.
Thank you very much for the presentations. From the previous session, we had a talk on sharing sites, 2 to 3 operators operating in the same infrastructure. So the question is, have this type of, let's say, installments with not just a single operator, no, many operators operating the same location has been studied, looked at as a cumulative output power from that location. And the second part is, I don't know if that's in the right place or in the right session, I mean, we will have future of, let's say, millimeter wave usage on the future or real soon. So how the effect of such, and let's say, infrastructure going to be on buildings, schools, hospitals, and related to the EMF? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good questions. As concerning sharing infrastructure, which is very important subject, it is now only touched in one recommendation in K121, but it is only some general information. So I think it is good place to starting this new work item and to develop special dedicated recommendation, or at least informative document dealing with this subject. So it is touched as concerning especially regulatory matters, but there is no good information, I think sufficient information concerning advantages, disadvantages, and so on. So I think this is important subject. As concerning second question, I forget, it was.
It's related to the millimeter wave and the infrastructure of their millimeter wave affecting, you know,
special sensitivity areas, you could say. But maybe we remember from the morning session that exposure limits are established, taken into account the worst cases. So it is taken into account also even pregnant women, people with personal medical devices. So it is covered. However, some countries in some regulations take them into account. But it is a little bit strange. Why? Because all mobile phones have automatic power control, which means that they are emitting only such amount of power that it is required to establish good connection with base station. Which means that if we are very, very far away from base station, this mobile equipment is working with highest possible exposure level, and it is used close to our body. If we are close to base station, then it is working on minimal possible level. So we have to think about both exposure kinds, one from base station, second from mobile handset. So for example, if in regulation there is no possibility to establish base station close to schools, it will work if you will, how to say, forbidden to use mobile phones by the children, by the schoolboys. If they could have possibility to use them, their equipment will be radiated with higher possible power. So it is not good solution. So in my understanding, it is covered in exposure limits, and there is no required special regulation concerning so-called sensitive area. Yes.
Yeah, I have other question if you allow me. My name is Dawood. I'm also from UAE TDRA. Thank you for answering my colleague Mohammed Blouchi questions. My question is about the measurement devices or measurement units. If there is any type of certificates or ITU standard to define which type of equipment I can use, as we can see there are some cheap and publicly available equipment that people are using and getting some unrealistic results, and they are trying to compare it to you know, any standards that's by ICNIRP or ITU. We argue that these equipments are maybe not certified or not approved by us to be used in such occasions or such measurements. But we wonder if there is any international certificates that even us, when we go for a vendor, that we can ask him for some kind of certification that he have, I mean, international. We know many trusted vendors, they have some certificates or approvals from local or some other countries where they manufacture. But we talk here about international levels as the ITU is managing that. So that was my question, basically.
Thank you very much. I am not sure that I was fully catch your question. You are speaking about medical devices or all devices?
I'm asking about the measurement device for the EMF, the device that we are using as a regulator to enforce the policy or to measure the radiations from the telecom towers, like wave controls or any other vendors that they are providing such devices.
Yes.
What are the international standards or certificates that we should seek for when we are selecting vendors, or is there anything from the ITU that suggests the type of minimum requirement or recommendations?
Yes, maybe I can answer that question. Yes, of course, I'm here representing the ITU, not my company. My company is manufacturing EMF measurement equipment, developing equipment. But what I can say is that I mean, we do not get as a manufacturers, we do not get like a certification, a global or international certification that allows us to sell those units for that purpose. You know what I mean? But you have some things you can look for. First of all is, of course, in ITU-T recommendations, they describe minimum requirements for the instruments. But more than that, you may also require an accredited calibration of the instruments, because it is true that you can find like instruments for $100 or euro on the internet for measuring EMF. But we have tested those instruments in our lab, and the response is like, I mean, it's like using anything, like using a microphone, you know. I mean, the results you get are far from being real. So you should look for minimum requirements as a summary. I think you should look for minimum requirements. You should look for reputation of the manufacturers, and you should look for an accredited calibration. If you have an accredited calibration, you can really know what is the response of the instrument in terms of linearity, frequency response, isotropy, and these kind of things that are important.
Maybe I will supplement this information, but of course, certification of equipment is important, but also important is certification of laboratory that is making such measurements. And for example, very good practice following in many countries is comparison of many different laboratories measuring the same testing system, and then results are compared, and such interlaboratory campaign should show which laboratories are making this measurement correct, which are incorrect, give possibility to improve the results. So certification of laboratories is also very important. If laboratory is using bad equipment, also results will be bad. Of course, ITU have no ability to make such certification of equipment, for example. But as Ernest said, in IEC and ITU-T recommendation, there is defined minimum requirement for such equipment.
Just one last comment on calibration. This is true what Frederick said concerning intercomparison of laboratories. This is very important. But as long as you have an accredited calibration from a lab which is accredited, for instance, our lab, I'm explaining that because I know we have a lab which is accredited, and when you are accredited, you are obliged to make these intercomparisons. So I mean, the intercomparison is already in there when you get an accredited calibration from an accredited lab. So that's the best type of calibration you can have, an accredited calibration, because there is a national authority which is auditing the lab and giving the lab this accreditation, which is conforming usually with ISO 17025, which is the international laboratory accreditation.
Mike, the floor is yours. If you have any comment or
yes, thank you. Thank you for the questions before on millimeter wave and the multiple sites. We have extensive experience on looking at, certainly in Australia, looking at millimeter wave deployment. We use all bands. We use high band, mid band, and low band, and all at the same site. And through the EMF guide, when you click through to have a look at those other resources, you can see those survey results available for the different countries. And to answer your question about is the exposure getting greater or less, with the 5G technology, we are finding that the exposures are not increasing. In fact, with millimeter wave, they're decreasing because of the efficiency and the ability to send a narrow beam to a device. It doesn't need the same power and the same spectral content, the same spectral bandwidth over a broader area. So you can find those results on the GSMA map that I showed before, but it's available through the EMF guide. And I also acknowledge the comment before about the accredited labs. I understand in your region you're looking to see how you could set up such instrumentation. The ITU, the IEC, and ISO, which have the lab accreditation, I can give an example from the UK and from Australia, where those regulators have specified minimum requirements for EMF testing laboratories, and they call on those guides. So if you wanted to contact me after the workshop, I'd be happy to pass on that information. But be reassured, with millimeter wave, we are finding the exposures are lower than with other frequencies because of the efficiency. But overall, 5G is we're seeing many more devices, but the exposures are not increasing. So I hope that helps you from a market where we do have a lot of 5G.
شكرا السادة الخبراء على هذه العروض التقديمية الواضحة والدقيقة جدا في مجالات الكهرومغناطيسية والتعرض البشري والمحاذير لقياس الإشعاعات الكهرومغناطيسية وأيضا البرامج المتاحة للمجالات الكهرومغناطيسية. حقيقة طبعا الأسئلة ممكن تكون كثيرة وما بتكمل، لكن إن شاء الله يعني ممكن تراسلوهم على الإيميلات لأي سؤال يخطر على بالكم، وإن شاء الله تكون يعني الورشة دي بداية لتعارف جديد مع خبراء ينهلوا من العلم في مجالهم، يعني ممكن يكون ذا فائدة كبيرة جدا للدول العربية إن شاء الله. السادة الحضور، شكرا لسعة صدركم وشكرا للمداخلات التي تمت في هذه الجلسة التي أحطت رونقا لهذه الجلسة. وأيضا إذا في أي استفسار أو سؤال ممكن تراسلوا على الإيميلات، وإن شاء الله يعني بيكون في تجاوب من الخبراء ومن كل الجهات ذات الصلة والعلاقة فيما يلي المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية وفيما يلي لجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع التقييس المجالات الكهرومغناطيسية والبيئة والعمل المناخي واقتصاد التدوير. شكرا لكم.
أيها الحضور الكريم، نشكركم على حسن استماعكم، وندعوكم الآن إلى استراحة قصيرة، ومن بعدها سوف يكون اجتماع الفريق الإقليمي للمنطقة العربية التابعة للجنة الدراسات الخامسة لقطاع تقييس الاتصالات. شكرا لكم.